Hey Optimancers, Chris here. So before I go any further, I just want to say that I am doing this video very quickly. I got a bunch of information like last night and I wanted to get it out today. That means I'm not going to have the hours and hours I usually use putting up the little visual aids and stuff I usually do. So you're going to see a lot of, clips that I got from online, and they'll probably just go over and over again. So if you want to just put this in the background and just listen, you're basically going to get all the information. Apologize about that, but there were time constraints for this one. Thanks to specifically Morris from N-World and Indestructiboy for the few visual presentations I actually do have to share. So yesterday, Wizards of the Coast hosted the first Creator Summit, where around 50 content creators were invited to attend in person. They were flown out, wined and dined, and attended a two-part summit on the future of D&D. This included breakout sessions, Q&As with Wizards of the Coast staff, a presentation on the future of the D&D virtual tabletop in Part 1, and the revised core books in 2024 in Part 2, including the overall design goals, previews of some pretty substantial planned rule changes, and a chance for content creators to ask questions of the senior design team. Content creators were allowed to record, but asked not to share these recordings to the general public for the time being. I was not one of the 50 content creators that was invited, but about a week later, around another 150 content creators were invited to attend the summit through Microsoft Meetings. I was not one of those 150 content creators, but I knew some of them, and they put in a good word for me and requested I get an invite to attend digitally. And those requests went nowhere. So I am not sure why Wizards of the Coast didn't want me there. It wasn't about the size of the channel. There were definitely YouTubers there with smaller audiences than mine. But yeah, about 200 content creators were given a bunch of exclusive information on the future of D&D, and the only reason I'm making this video is fortunately some of them were kind enough to share on Twitter some of the highlights. However, I did get some contact information from another content creator, and I promise you this, I am about to become the squeakiest wheel that Wizards of the Coast has ever come across. Now, fortunately, from those tweets and people sharing information, there is enough here to share some pretty interesting stuff with you, my viewers. However, having not attended and getting all this information secondhand, just be aware, I can't really answer questions about the details, and by the end of this video, you're going to basically know everything that I know. I'm going to mostly focus on the 1D&D content. Oh, but apparently it's not 1D&D anymore. 1D&D was, quote, a placeholder name for the future plans for 5th edition, D&D Beyond, and the virtual tabletop, but not the products themselves. So will it be 5.5 or 6th edition? Neither. It's going to be 5th edition. No, not that 5th edition. That 5th edition will be, according to the designers, something you could still create a character from and play it alongside a character made from the new rules. It's going to be a revised 5th edition that they call 5th edition. Now, whether we call it 5th edition isn't up to them. So I'll probably be calling it 5.5 for at least the time being. I mean, 5.5 means a revised 5th edition. I don't know why you wouldn't call it that. Thing is if I refer to the 5th edition Player's Handbook, nobody should need to ask me which one. So they started with a VTT presentation, and I'll go over that pretty quickly. So the idea behind the planned VTT is to focus on the 3D experience. Wizards of the Coast figures that part of the virtual tabletop marketplace hasn't been fully developed, so that is their opportunity. Now you absolutely can play on Foundry, or I think even Roll20 in 3D, but it's not the most common way to play on those platforms. I actually played the 3D version on Foundry, or at least I attempted to, but we gave up because we were having some pretty bad lag times. Now I've been told, including from the DM of that session, that they've run it before and it worked just fine for them for other games, so I guess I just had bad luck. The VTT will include automation for the D&D rules, so it's going to add modifiers for you, keep track of your resources, and apparently they're still trying to find some other ways to, quote, help you feel like you are all in the same room. And no, I can't elaborate on that. Currently, the virtual tabletop is in what they said was the pre-alpha stage, and anyone working at Hasbro can playtest the VTT right now. Their next step is to open up playtesting to a few influencers. Quote, a few influencers. In other words, I would assume the esteemed guests in the room. And yes, I have some sour grapes and I'm airing them to you now. From what I heard, the virtual tabletop presentation kinda blew. Questions about the technical specs, pricing, and compatibility were asked, and they were answered with what were pretty wishy-washy answers. Nothing solid. Let me give you an example. So this is a question somebody actually asked and the actual response. My day job is an indie game studio, so I might be thinking about it differently. What are the preliminary monetization for the VTT? Will it be subscription, microtransactions, free to play, etc.? Answer: you're right. You do have to think about monetization because there have to be servers and the game has to be around a long time. We're thinking about it and discussing different options. The business minds are working on that, but I'm making sure we think about the player because people don't like it if it's $20 to start playing. I don't know what it is right now because we haven't decided anything yet, but I'm keeping the player in mind and we want people to come in and play because we don't want to charge money at the door to try it out. So basically, questions were asked and they didn't really get solid answers. A lot of maybes, a lot of we would like to do this, a lot of there is a world where that could happen, and that's about it. The general sentiment was that the attendees didn't learn much about the virtual tabletop that they didn't already know, and Wizards of the Coast didn't seem to be able to answer any questions. And maybe they should have just skipped that portion on the virtual tabletop altogether. So from what I heard, basically they presented the VTT, there wasn't really any new information, then the content creators asked some specific questions about it and didn't get any solid answers. So then the Q&A kind of devolved into talking more about the OGL and problems content creators have had over the past few months and demanding answers from the Wizards of the Coast team. Apparently, Cynthia Williams came out at some point and answered some questions or something like that. This is all really secondhand, and I got some different versions of it. But there was basically a devolving of the Q&A session from that point. So enough of the stuff I don't care about. Let's dive into the juicy stuff. Edition 5.5. So first off, the next Unearthed Arcana playtest packet is going to be released in approximately 3 weeks. We were told it would be packed, but apparently it's going to be really packed, as in Warlock, Sorcerer, Wizard, Monk, Fighter, and Barbarian. So these, along with the ones we've already seen, will be all the classes in the 2024 Player's Handbook. Now, we already kind of knew the Artificer wouldn't be in there, but now it's confirmed there will be no Artificer. So the layout of the new Player's Handbook is intended to be inviting to new players. It's going to start out with how to play, and then character creation stuff is going to follow that. There will be enhanced support for players making a character for the first time. Like example, ability score raise for every class, example spell list. Basically, a new player can kind of just plug and play. All of the rules will be in a massive glossary in the back of the book containing all the mechanics so you don't have to hunt things down through the entire book. Everything that has changed in the new Player's Handbook will include text referencing what has changed. So let's talk about backwards compatibility. According to the designers, the new 5th edition will be compatible with all your 5th edition books, but they did talk about 2 notable books where things will be a little bit different. Can you guess which 2? Good guess. Yes, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. In terms of backwards compatibility, I'm just going to repeat the quote I found from Jeremy Crawford. Tasha's and Xanathar's Guide will get a special process. Anything in those books have always had the option to graduate to a core book. When that happens, down the road, we'll combine the leftover material from Tasha's and Xanathar's and add new content. It'll still have a glossary to help you with the changes. I read this as some of the material in these books will be reprinted and probably revised in the new Player's Handbook. Crawford was asked specifically by an attendee if we could expect the Twilight Cleric to be reprinted and revised in the new Player's Handbook. That is a great question. Nope. But maybe in a future book. He said they would combine any leftover material from Tasha's and Xanathar's and add some new content for some future book, so maybe Twilight will be addressed then. Nobody asked about the other stick-out subclasses, like the Hexblade Warlock, the Gloomstalker Ranger, and the Peace Domain Cleric, so I don't know. I guess we can hope. And art, yeah, so expect lots of art in the new Player's Handbook. Every subclass gets art. Maybe 30 to 60 pages of additional content in the new Player's Handbook, and a lot of it will be because of new art. As we know, they changed the name of the races to species. Apparently, they aren't sure if that's where it's going to end up. They may still go with lineage, apparently. We're going to get the 9 races, or species, or lineages we all expect. Ardling is gone, everything else in the playtest is going to be in the Player's Handbook, and that's it. Each class is going to have 4 subclasses, so some classes will have more subclasses, like the Bard, which will apparently have a College of Dance, and some will have fewer, like way fewer. Hello, Cleric and Wizard. But they encourage you to still use the subclasses from the old Player's Handbook because it will all be, quote, fully compatible. There was also some specific conversation regarding the monk. Not so much mechanics, though, more about cultural stereotyping. So no discussion on the shortage of key points, but there was a discussion on the name of key points. You won't have key points anymore at all because they are going to be called, and get ready for this, spirit points. Not focus points or anything else that would still accurately describe what they are. No, spirit points. But they did say this was all subject to community feedback. The monk is going to start with a d6 for their martial arts die, so there's that. And there's weapon mastery, which was easily the most tasty reveal, and we're going to get back to that, and I will share everything I've learned. Oh yeah, and the vastly unpopular playtest druid. It is getting changed, but here's what they said. You'll have the rich options you love while making it easier to play. So now you know all the details I know. So then they talked about the weapons, and you're going to notice here a new column on this chart for mastery. This is a special way to use these weapons that will be available to monks, barbarians, and fighters. There's also some other changes. The trident does more damage. Firearms are now going to be part of the core rules, and the short sword has moved back to the martial weapon list. Being able to unlock these masteries will be a class feature for the warrior classes. So the experts get expertise, the priests get channel, we don't know what the mages get yet, and the warriors are going to get weapon mastery. Apparently, you don't pick one of these features to unlock, but instead you pick a specific weapon, and then you unlock the corresponding feature for that weapon. What weapons are available is going to depend on your class. So the monk is going to have access to simple weapons only for mastery, apparently. Fighters are going to have the exclusive ability to swap weapon masteries, and apparently eventually use more than one of them at the same time. I have no idea how that's going to work. We have slow. You hit a creature and its speed is going to be reduced by 10 feet. Nick. So the light weapon property we've been seeing in the previous playtests is getting reverted to requiring your bonus action for that second weapon attack again. That is, unless you have the Nick weapon mastery, in which case you can make that second weapon attack with the same action. Push. You hit a creature and it's going to be knocked back 10 feet. Puncture. You hit a creature and you get advantage on your next attack roll against the same target. Sap. No idea what this does. Apparently it didn't come up. Flex. Lets you use the two-handed weapon damage for a versatile weapon, even when holding the weapon in one hand. Cleave. The information I've got on this one isn't very clear, but I think it allows you to inflict any leftover damage after you drop a target to a second target within range. Maybe. Graze. Allows you to inflict a little bit of damage even if you miss. And no, I don't know how much damage that is. Topple. Apparently wasn't discussed, but I have to think it makes the target prone, right? So, these all seem pretty darn cool. Flex looks pretty weak to me, but until we get specifics like duration, actual amounts, potential saving throws, all that stuff, I can't really evaluate it yet. Some other Player's Handbook stuff. Let's see. Warlocks, as we already know, are going to have Eldritch Blast as a class feature. Apparently Warlocks will get a Baby Pact. I hope that's not the official name, but that quote was from multiple content creators talking about the summit, so that is the term they used, Baby Pact. Anyways, this baby pact will be received at first level, and it's going to allow them to be charisma or intelligence-based casters, or something like that. Basically, Warlocks being able to choose from multiple ability scores to be their casting ability is confirmed. Speaking of class features, Chaos Bolt is going to be a Sorcerer class feature at level 1. I don't know if it's being changed to a cantrip or what its uses will be, but apparently sorcerers will get some ability to manipulate the randomness of the spell. Find Steed is going to become a paladin-only spell. Potentially some other spells will become class-specific, but Find Steed was mentioned specifically, so that is great to hear. So after all of this, they opened the floor up to questions from the attendees. This was posted by Morris from N-World, who attended the summit. A segment that was supposed to focus on Player's Handbook questions instead ended up having people who asked questions earlier about abuse content creators have taken from the community and about rebuilding trust were asked yet again, even though they had been thoroughly answered several times. So you know what? I am a bit pissed that I was not invited to this summit, but I must admit I didn't mind missing some of what I'm hearing. I mean, yeah, we took some abuse, and it sucked. But you know what? Unless Wizards of the Coast has access to a time machine, I don't know what exactly they can do about it now, other than promise to never put us in that position again. Which I don't know if they did, because I wasn't at the summit. But there were a few other tidbits from the summit, and here they are. Expect changes to Paladin Smite. I think the once per turn thing might be going away. In the new monster manual, there's going to be more creatures of various subtypes over challenge rating 10, and they will, quote, hit harder. There will be playtest packets for the Dungeon Master's Guide and Monster Manual, so we will be given the opportunity to provide feedback. The Monster Manual will be the biggest monster manual in the history of D&D. You will be able to find the gelatinous cube under G instead of under O. Now, what I would have liked to have seen is a monster manual divided by challenge rating with alphabetical listings within those divisions, but it sounds like it's just going to be alphabetical front to back. The encounter building rules with challenge ratings and such is getting an overhaul, as we all know it needs. Whether the new system will be better or not, I cannot say. There will be new rules for creating magic items, enhanced rules for magic item pricing, and rules for buying and selling magic items. There will be a focus on making the Dungeon Master's Guide a book you use for more than just magic items now. And Planescape. Yeah, bad news. 3-book slipcase like Spelljammer, a 96-page gazetteer, a 96-page adventure, and a 64-page bestiary. Don't at me, bro. I'm just reporting what I heard. And that was the information that was given to attendees at the Creator Summit, or at least the information that they were kind enough to release on Twitter or websites or wherever else I could find it. If you've learned some other information that happened at the summit, by all means share it down below, because I haven't heard it and I would love to. So I have sent a discreet email to the influencer contact that I received and asked them what I can do to attend the next summit, and I'll find out if I get a reply to that. So I'll let you guys know what comes of that, and if nothing comes of that, then I'm going to figure out what my next step is, but I don't think I'm going to take no for an answer. Thanks for listening, everyone. And until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone, even if the summits aren't. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.